am I live? Am I not? Actually, there's a reason I'm live. It's because I'm about to finish reading my book. I got like 2 chapters left. See? The bottom part. I think it is at least. But I'll probably finish it here. So I'm just going to read it out loud. That's a good angle. Right. Good. No. How about here? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Alrighty. I'll sit even. Ooh, I just moved the whole lounge. This is actually my bed, and it's just folded up because I can fold up my bed. So yeah. Alright. The Dead of the Night. John Marston. Chapter 13, page 185. How many chapters is there? Why is that page corner folded? Obviously the last person who read this book didn't finish the book. What was that? Chapter 13. Chapter, what was that? 17. I've not finished this book anywhere near. I thought I was close. I lied in the live stream title. I still have heaps to go. I'm on page 185. How many pages is there? I still got like 100 pages left. $271. I've got like almost 100 pages left. Crackling static from our radio almost drowned out the voices. Okay, I can't be bothered doing this on live stream. I'm nowhere near finished the book. I was wrong. Wrong. What's the date? It's the 31st. I need to finish this before February. Read a book a month each month this year. Maybe I should aim to read more than one book a month. Anyway. After I finish this collection of books, because I got the whole set. What is there? There's 7, I read 2. 5, I have 5 left. And there's I think it's got a prequel from the main character's perspective only after the war. So that's another 3 books. 5, 6, 7, 8. I got 8 books left. There's 12 months in a year, but I reckon if I read 2 books a month, that will take me to April. These books will. Yeah, 8. Yeah. Well, that'll take me to April. Then I'll just have to find out from there. Why the car just pull up out front? What's it doing? What are you doing? How's this? Who is this? Hey, mate. Oh. Must be a DoorDasher. Anyway, back to the book. Crackling static from our radio almost drowned out the voices reflecting the static. Was the rain, steadily beating away at the roof, dripping through the galvanised iron in a few places, running down the wall in others. It poured down the chimney in a steady shower, splashing from the fireplace out onto the bare wooden floor. Dressed in all our woolies, we huddled around the little black transistor. The battery was retired, and although for the first minute we heard the voices quite clearly, they were already getting distorted. Still, what we had heard had been encouraging, the first encouraging news that we'd had since the American voice had promoted us to the 3rd most important item. Much of the southern coastline has been recaptured. In a fierce fighting around Newington, air and land forces from New Zealand are believed to have
inflicted heavy casualties on a battalion of enemy troops. A successful landing by troops from New Guinea has been made in the north of the country, in the Cape Martindale area, and in Washington. Senator Rosie Sims has called for an urgent review of U.S. foreign policy. In the light of the new power alignments in Asia Pacific area, Senator Sims is sponsoring $100 million military aid package to support the beleaguered country. And although the Senate is not expected to pass the Sims bill, public sentiment in support of indirect intervention appears to be growing. Then we heard the voice of our great leader, the Prime Minister, who jetted out of the country in a wild hurry when he realised the war was being lost. We continue to fight to the full extent of our powers, he said, but we cannot do ... There was a rush for the radio as three of us, encumbered by blankets, dived for the button. We got it off and then lay together on the four old mattresses that we'd pushed into a line along the wall. We watched the water dripping around the shed. We were at Kevin's, sleeping in old shearer's quarters, which angled off at 90 degrees from the shearing shed. It was nice to sleep in wooden building. Again, even one as leaky and drafty as this. 2 weeks of relentless rain had got on our nerves. What was I up to? So badly that we'd finally packed up and moved out of hell. Everything we owned had become damp, then bedraggled, then soaked. Water had run out of our drains and into the tents. It didn't seem worth getting up in mornings knowing that we couldn't go anywhere or do anything. So we made feeders for the chooks, which meant we could leave them for longer periods of time, and at last, weighed down by the wet clothing in our swags, our improvised packs, we'd squelched out of hell. We were thoroughly sick of each other's company and desperate for a touch of normality. Oh, we got some comments on the live stream. Who's talking? Jaxie Boy 97 Roblox. Sup, bro? How's it going? Also, by the way, nice book. Thanks you, Jaxie Boy 97 Roblox. Sup, bro? Like, what's up? Oh, nothing much, just reading. We got, how's it going? It's going good, it's going good. First day back at school today. Pretty eats. And nice book, by the way. Thank you. It's a good book, good book. EJ Fortnite. Hi, hello, EJ Fortnite. I guess we got Roblox and Fortnite players in my chat. I guess because my name's Gaming. No more gaming, but I'm still majorly cool. That's the bio. Maybe I might. There we go. Yeah, we go, mate. Yeah, mate. What's oh, crap. There we go. I'm gonna drink before I continue to the next page. I sub. Thank you, EJ Fortnite. See, oh, that was a bottle flip. Look at that. That was a bottle flip. Anyways, let's play Fortnite. Oh, crap. Used to play Fortnite, but I don't play Fortnite anymore. Don't play any games. I occasionally might play the PlayStation in the lounge room with my little sister. Or play like Roblox with someone. No more games though. It had taken 3 nights of surreptitious fires to dry our things out. But at last, I was starting to feel human again. There's something reassuring about having all your clothes and blankets clean and dry and organised, even if the 5 of us were sleeping on 4 old thin mattresses that were shedding more of their insides with every passing hour. Actually, being dry and normal had put us in a silly mood. Homer and Robin had been playing I Spy for half an hour before the news started, but the game had degenerated once Robin began thinking of impossible words. Something beginning with I had turned out to be indefinable futures. Oh, pardon. And something beginning with E was erotic daydreams. which Robin claimed we were all having. After the news, we played hangman, then charades. I kept them guessing for 10 minutes with my dramatic reenactment of the effect of gamma rays on man in the moon, marigolds, which no one else had ever heard of. I'd seen it on a video in year 8 when I had a real Zindel craze, but the others nearly killed me when they last gave in and I told them the answer. The rain stopped, and Lee went for a walk. He wanted me to come, but I couldn't be bothered. I was halfway through a romance called Send Me White Flowers. Are you Australian? Yes, I am, mate. I am Australian. I live in Australia, in Victoria, state of Victoria. Yeah, we got Fortnite here in Australia. With Fee, watching from her mattress to see if I was going to cry or not, when Lee slipped quietly back in through the door, shutting it softly behind him. He said, "There are soldiers coming." I jumped up, dropping the book, and ran to the window. I stood behind it and tried to peer out, but it was too dangerous. So I did what the others were doing and found a crack in the wall and stood with my eye pressed against it. We watched anxiously. There were 2 trucks grinding away up the driveway. One an army one with a tarp over the back, the other a small tray top from Wirrawee Hardware. They pulled up to the west of the house, near the machinery shed, parking neatly side by side. Soldiers started to get out from the cab of each truck. "Oh God," Fee moaned. "They must know we're here." I hadn't noticed Homer leave his position, but suddenly he was beside me, handing me a rifle, the one I'd taken from the dead soldier, at the foot of the cliffs. He gave Fee the 410 shotgun, Robin a sawn-off 22, and Lee a sawn-off 12 gauge. He kept the other automatic rifle for himself. Robin accepted the 22, but I saw her look at it for a moment and then lay it carefully on the floor beside her. I didn't know what to think of that. Could we rely on her if it came to a shootout? Or she did refuse to shoot. Was she right or wrong? If she was right, that made me wrong. Sweat was prickling my skin, as though I'd rubbed against a stinging needle. I wiped the moisture from my face and looked again through the long vertical crack. I am too. In Brisbane. Bye. Goodbye, EJ Fortnite. Brisbane is a nice place, I've heard. A lot of kids on e-bikes doing wheelies and stuff. Except there's no sound because it's an e-bike, so it's just... Yeah, I got an e-bike. See it in my videos if you keep watching. EJ Fortnite. What was I up to? People were getting out of the covered truck. The soldiers were lounging around, watching. I've ever had rifles. They hadn't bothered to unsling them. They were quite casual, quite confident. The people were obviously prisoners. 10 of them. 5 men, 5 women. I couldn't recognise anyone, though I thought one looked a bit like Corey's mum. The prisoners seemed to know what to do without being told. Some took bags from the back of the hardware truck and set off for the fruit trees. A few went into the house, and 2 to the machinery shed. A soldier accompanied each group. The 4th soldier stayed at the trucks and lit a cigarette. I looked across at Homer. "What do you think?" "It's another work party." "Yes, good chance to gather some info, maybe." "Let's just wait for a while." "Time spent in reconnaissance, huh?" "One of them looked like Corey's mum." "What do you think it is?" Fee said. "Oh, it's Fee. I did a man voice for C." It's just, I'm trying to start doing these voices. It's just silver hair. She's too thin and too old. We returned to our holes and cracks and kept watching. I saw glimpses of the people in the orchard, but there were no signs of the ones in the buildings. But after 10 minutes, the soldier who'd gone into the machinery shed came ambling out and joined his mate by the truck. He was obviously trying to bot? That's a new word. Bought a cigarette. It took him a few minutes, but finally the first man pulled out the packet and handed one over. Oh, bot, he was trying to steal it. Okay, not light it. Then they both got in the cab of the bigger truck and sat there to have their smokes. "We better get out of here," Robin said. "We've got these guns with us. We don't want any more trouble." "Okay," Homer said. Do a clean up first. We can go out the end door and up through the trees. You guys do that, I said. I'm going down the machinery shed. The others looked at me doubtfully. I don't think, Robin started. It's a really good chance, I cut in swiftly. We haven't heard anything for weeks. I want to know how Corey is and our families. Robin, can you take my stuff? She reluctantly nodded. I'll come too, Lee said. I was tempted because I would have felt more confident with some company, but I knew it wouldn't work. Thanks anyways, I said. Too big a crowd. Lee hesitated, but I wasn't in the mood. I wanted to do something, to prove to myself that I still had some courage. But the terrible night in the Holloway Valley hadn't turned me into a junket. And all those weeks of rain had made me impatient. The last time I tried to be independent and strong, I lost my fingertips. Now I was anxious to try again, to do better, to get some self-respect. Maybe some respect from the others too. The other four began packing, moving quickly and quietly. I went out of a window at the side and hurried deep into the gum trees to get around the sheep yards. There was a bed of trees running all the way down the hill. They gave good cover, and I stayed in its shadows till I had the machinery shed between me and the trucks. Then I started edging closer to the shed, using it as my shield. My problem was that there was no entrance to the shed except the eastern side, which was all entrance. It was completely open. I had to come out of the trees, creep along the side of the shed, aiming for the only cover left to me, and water tank at the corner. Reaching the tank was nerve-wracking. Husky. Hello. Hello, Cade. He said hello, Zayden. I'm saying hello, Cade. I'm reading a book, mate. Reading a book. Thank you for the car ride today. The hard thing was to calm myself, to stop my chest taking on its own life and breathing like a set of bagpipes. I had to clench my fists and yell at myself silently. In my head, to get control and calm down, to get ready for the tough part. I went down on my hands and knees and wriggled under the tank stand. Then, with agonizing slowness, a millimeter at a time, I put my head out and peeped around the corner. I should narrate audiobooks for a living? Maybe I should. I'd have to not mess up the words though. Actually, I think they just edit it. If someone like messed up a word, you just restart the sentence and they just fix that up. I don't know. I'll go on Fiverr or something. Try to find somewhere that does it. Make some extra cash on the side, you know. Hurts your jaw though, reading out loud. I'll do jaw exercises each morning. I have like a very nice jawline. I wonder if people who narrate audiobooks have nice jawlines. Not sure. I don't mind saying it was one of the braver moments of my life. A soldier could have been standing a metre away, but there was no one there. Bare ground stretched away, brown and wet. I could see the trucks about 50 metres from me. Almost spewed on no one. Looking huge and deadly from my position. I wriggled out a little further, twisting to the left as I did. From there I could see into the deep, dark machinery shed. The deep, dark machinery shed. There was a tractor and a header and an old ute. Further back was a stack of wool and bales. I couldn't see any people, but I heard a clink of tools and a murmur of voices away in the far corner. I hesitated another few seconds, then took a breath. I steeled myself like I was at school. School sports, waiting for the gun. Then took off, running silently for the wool bales, using the tractor as cover. If I'd had a bit of white fluff on my bum, I would have passed for a rabbit, but I got there safely and waited, trembling, pressed against the smooth skin of a bale. The voices kept talking, rising and falling like a river. I couldn't make out the words. Ugh. But it sounded like English. I started sliding along the bales, glancing at the entrance all times, so I could see if anyone came in. At the corner of the bales, I stopped again. Now I could hear the voice clearly. I trembled as I sweated, and the tears smarted in my eyes as I recognised one of them. It was Mrs. Mackenzie, Corey's mum. My first instinct was to sit down and bowl like a little kid, but I knew I couldn't give in to such weakness. They were for old days, the innocent days, when we lived in a soft life. Those days were lost, along with paper tissues and plastic supermarket bags, and jars of moisturiser. All the useless luxuries that we took for granted before the war. Not only have we taken them for granted, we even thought they were important. Now they're as foreign as far away as the luxury of crying with relief of a familiar voice. Corey's mum, Mrs. Mackenzie, I had 1,000 cups of tea and 5,000 scones at her kitchen table. She taught me how to make toffee, how to gift wrap Chrissy prezzies, how to send a fax. I told her about my cat dying, my crush on Mrs. Hawthorne, and my first kiss. When my parents got especially annoying or frustrating, I put it out to her, and she'd soak it all up, and she'd understood exactly how I felt. Getting dark in here. Nah, it's not dark enough yet. I won't turn the light on. I peered around inside of the bales. I had a good view of the back corner of the shed. I was looking at the workbench with the tools neatly arranged on the walls above it. With no power connected, the area was dark and gloomy, but I could see the two people working at the bench. A man with his back to me was tinkering with something. I didn't recognise him from his back, and I wasn't so interested in him anyways. My enthusiasm was all for Mrs. Macker. I looked at her hungrily and felt at once the disbelief in my stomach. She was side on to me, cleaning out a carburetor with a toothbrush. A shadow was on her face, but I could hardly believe she was Mrs. Mackenzie. This person was old and thin, with silver hair, long and straggly. Mrs. Mackenzie was middle-aged and nicely plump, red-headed like her daughter. I kept staring at her, my disappointment giving way to anger. I'd really thought it wasn't her after all, but gradually, as I looked, I began to see traces of Miss Mackenzie in her face, in the way she stood and in the way she moved. Then she put down the toothbrush, wiped her hair away from my eyes, and picked up a screwdriver. And in the movement of her hand, as she brushed her hair aside, I saw Corey's mum in shock and love, and I cried out, "Mrs. Macker!" She let go of the screwdriver, which fell to the floor, bouncing and clattering. She spun around, her mouth and chin dropping, which made her face even longer and thinner. She went very white and clutched her throat. "Oh, Ellie." Don't think that's what Mrs. Macker would sound like. I thought she was going to faint, but she leant quickly and heavily against the bench, putting her left hand to her forehead and covering her eyes. I wanted to go to her, but I knew I mustn't. The man glancing out at the trucks said to me swiftly, "Stay there." I was annoyed because I'd worked that out for myself, but I didn't say anything. I already knew I shouldn't have called out Mrs. Mackenzie. I called out, "You came up." Why am I reading in the voice? "You came up on my actual YouTube recommended. This is a fantastic read." Thank you, Zane Brewell. Thank you very much. This is The Dark of the Night. It's like flipped on my screen. Don't know what does that. What was I up to? Can't. I'm losing light. I can't see any. I have to put it up like this. Here we go. I already knew I shouldn't have called out. Mrs. Mackenzie bent down and picked up the screwdriver, but it took her 3 tries, and she seemed like she wasn't seeing it properly. Then she half looked across at me, yearningly. We were half a dozen meters apart, but it may as well have been 100 k's. Corey, are you alright? She asked. I was shocked that she called me Corey and hadn't seemed to realise it, but I tried to act naturally. We're fine, Mrs. Mac, I whispered.
I hope you're enjoying it, thanks. Can you tell over top of your lungs real quick? Yell. GamePro plays Roblox. Another Roblox YouTuber, what? Ah!
How are you? Oh, I'm just fine. We're all fine. I've lost a bit of weight, Ellie. That's all. But I've needed to do that for years.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it, lol.
Oh, good. How's Corey? I felt that awful dread in my heart again, but I had to ask, and now that Mrs. Mackenzie had called me Ellie again, I thought it was okay, but she took a long time to answer. She looked half asleep, strangely. She was still leaning against the workbench. She's okay, Ellie. She's lost a lot of weight too. We're just waiting for her to wake up. How are my parents? How's everybody? They're alright, they're fine. Your parents are in good shape, the man said. I still didn't know who he was. We've had a bad few weeks, but your parents are fine. A bad few weeks? I asked. This conversation was taking place in urgent whispers with many glances at trucks. We've lost quite a few people. How do you mean lost? Almost choked on the question. They've got a new bloke, the man said. How do you mean? They brought in an Australian bloke from out of town, some chalky. He keeps picking people out for interrogation, and a lot of them get taken away after he's finished with them. Where to? How should we know? They won't tell us. We just hope to God it isn't a firing squad. Who does he pick? First it was all the people who'd been in the Army Reserve. He knew who they were. Then it was the cops, and Bert Haggany, and a couple of your teachers. Anyone who's a bit of a leader, you know what I mean? He doesn't know everyone, but he knows a lot of people. He does about 5 a day, and we're lucky if 3 of them come back in the evening. They said, I thought there were informers at the showground already. Not like this bloke. There's people who suck up to them, but they don't do this kind of thing. They don't help with interrogations, not like this mongrel. There was so much anger in the man's voice at the end of his answer that his voice rose sharply in volume. I cowered down in the shadows for a moment, but no one came. I knew I'd have to go soon, but I wish Miss Mackenzie would say more. She seemed so gaunt and tired and washed out. How's Lee's family? I asked, and Fee's and Homer's. How are Robin's folks? Miss Mackenzie just nodded. They're good, the man said. What do you have to do here? I asked. Get it ready. There'll be colonists moving here in the next few days. You kids have to be careful. There are work parties out everywhere now. We're expecting hundreds of colonists soon. I felt sick. We were getting hemmed in. Maybe once a day, I'd have to accept the unthinkable, the unfaceable. That would be slaves for the rest of our life. A future that was no future. A life that was no life. But I had no time for thought. I only had time for doing. Why am I fleeing? Screen just flicker. I've got to go, Mrs. Macker said. I said. To my horror, she suddenly burst into wild sobs, turning away from me and falling forward onto the workbench, dropping the screwdriver again as she wept. She was sort of screaming and crying. At the same time, my scalp felt like I had 240 volts applied to it. It was like I'd been given an instant crew cut. Frightened, I backed away fast, scurrying to the far end of the wool bales and ducking behind them.
I heard a truck door open and a soldier come walking into the shed. What's wrong? He asked. Oh, no, the man said. He sounded quite convincing, like he really didn't care. She just started crying. If those bloody Swedish carburetors, I reckon they'd just drive anyone to tears. Almost grinned as I crouched there in the darkness. Nothing seemed to happen for a while. The only sound was Mrs. Mackenzie sobbing, which had now become quieter. I could hear her gulping as she tried to get some air in her lungs. Get some control back. Come on, love, the man said. I heard some more footsteps which sounded like a soldier again. They went out of the shed and faded away towards the house. Go for your life, Ellie, the man said in a normal conversational tone, as though he was talking to Mrs. Mackenzie. I had to rely on his judgment, so I took off without saying anything, slipping around the corner of the shed, past the water tank into the bush. I greeted the trees, like they were my friends, my family. I hid behind one for a while, embracing it for a while. I got my breath back, but I twirled up the hill to find my friends. Just had to change my name. Zayden is the best, 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. Zayden is the best, 1, 2, 3. What's... I don't know what your name was before, but Zayden's the best is way better. Thank you. It's getting dark in here, and this light don't work. Let me turn the other light on. Thanks, mate. Where about in Oz are you? I'm in Victoria, in Mildura. It's like up the top of Victoria, on the Murray River, on the border of New South Wales, and about 50 k's from the border of SA. It's kind of remote. Not really. It's like the biggest rural town in Victoria, I guess you could say. Damn, I've got one chapter down. I'm in New South Wales. Oh, nice. I was born in New South Wales. Born in Broken Hill. Broken Hill's a pretty strange place. They use SA phone numbers because they're close to the SA border. Ooh, we got Visible Pie from Australia as well. Sydney, nice. Oh, Sydney. One of the biggest cities. Pretty sure it was the biggest. Now Melbourne is or something. I don't know. I don't keep up with that stuff. I wouldn't mind going to Sydney. Travel in Australia. This book is pretty sure it's based in Victoria. Down some region in Victoria. Ah. Me neither, yeah. Can't keep up with that stuff. I just look at the news and they're like, remember. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And then they just talk about woke people and it's like, yeah, okay. Time to turn the news off. Let's see. Chapter 14. We saw our first colonists today. We saw our first colonists only 2 days later. More rain had blown in and we'd retreated to the shearers' quarters for protection. Huddling there as the timber creaked and the wind and whined and muttered. The rain came in squalls, rattling on the galvanized iron as though we were being roof-rocked. We took it in turns on sentry duty, keeping a 24-hour watch. But the weather was so bad that the work parties didn't return. We went and inspected what they'd done. The house was clean and tidy, and the beds made. It was all ready for strangers, aliens, to move in and take over. It scared and upset me, trying to imagine these people sleeping in the home's beds, eating in their kitchen, walking their paddocks, and sowing their seeds in the home's earth. I supposed that our farm would go the same way soon. After 2 days the rain had stopped, though the sky was still grey, the air cold and the ground wet and muddy. We decided to walk to Chris's place again. When we got a chance, in case he'd turn up there. So at dusk, and despite the cold, rotten weather, we took our gear and marched off across the paddocks. Roads were too dangerous so early in the evening, but we knew we could bypass.
Wirrawee and strike Melbourne Marsh Road without much trouble, and that would put us close to the Langs. It was a silent walk for a while. Being cooped up for more than 2 days hadn't improved our tempers, but the open spaces were good. It was nice to be able to breathe again. I felt myself relaxing after the first couple of Ks. I held Lee's hand for a while, but it was too hard to walk along in the dark like that. We needed both hands for our balance, and after our frequent stumbles, I dropped back and left Lee on his own, and talked to Robin about movies we'd seen, which ones we'd liked and which ones we didn't. I had a great longing to see a movie again, to be able to look up at the vast screen in the darkness and watch beautiful people, beautifully dressed, saying clever and romantic things to each other. I suppose that in other parts of the world, people were still making these films, and other people were still watching them. But it was a hard thing to comprehend. We skirted around Wirrawee and got onto Melbourne Marsh Road. It was now well after 10 o'clock, and we thought we were safe on the road. It was a relief to be able to walk on it, and we'd made much better time. About 2 Ks from Chris's, we saw a house with lights on. It was a shock to us. It was the first we knew that power was being reconnected to rural houses. We stopped and looked in silence. It wasn't a welcome sight at all. In one way, it should have been comforting to see something that was so like old times. But life was different now. We were used to being feral animals, used to roaming the dark country at night, used to running wild in the wild. If the colonists spread through farmlands, reclaiming them with their lights and electricity and their own form of civilization, we would be forced to further and further out to the edges, having to skulk in caves and burrows among the rocks. Still, without a word being said, we moved towards the house. We'd become human moths. The house wasn't one I knew, but it was a comfortable looking place. Solid brick with big wide windows and at least 3 chimneys. Shade trees grew around it, and a neat garden with brick borders made a geometric pattern at the front. The borders nearly proved my downfall. I trod on one of the bricks and felt a spasm in my knee which had been free of pain for several days now. But I recovered my balance, and when I tested my knee, it felt okay. I caught up with the others, who had bunched behind a tree and were looking towards one of the lit windows. Bad strategy, I thought. A soldier with a gun could wipe them all out in less than a second. I whispered that to them when I got to the tree. They looked startled, but quickly spread out to cover the other trees. I went around the eastern side of the house and found a peppercorn tree with a wooden slat nailed to it, leading up to a kid's cubby and treehouse. I scaled the ladder and sat in the first fork. It gave me a dress circle view of the kitchen. I watched grimly. There were 3 women working in there. They looked quite at home. They were reorganising everything. They all had jars and plates and saucepans, cans out of the cupboards and spread across the tables and benches. They were wiping things down and putting them away, stopping every now and then to take a close look at something, or to draw the attention of the others to it. I'm still here, by the way. Love the reading. Thank you, Zayden is the best 123 from Sydney. There was a gadget with orange plastic handles made for getting the lids off jars, and that seemed to fascinate them. I guess they couldn't work out what it was for. They were putting their fingers through the hole in the middle and waving them around, then trying to screw each other's noses off with it. They were laughing a lot. I could just hear their voices through the wall, sounding thin and high-pitched, almost a little nasal. But they looked like they were having a lot of fun. They seemed happy and excited. I felt such a mixture of feelings, watching them. Jealousy, anger, fear, depression. I couldn't bear to see it anymore. I slipped down from a tree and went and found the others. Then we stole away through the garden bed and back to the road. Comparing notes as we walked along, we worked out that there were at least 8 adults in the house. I'd been assuming that they'd put one family on each farm, but perhaps they thought we were extravagant, having so much land between so few people. Perhaps they'd build houses all across the rural valley, till there was one family in each paddock, farming the land intensely. I didn't know how Earth would cope with that, but then maybe we hadn't been making enough use of it. We trudged on, each quiet, with private thoughts and furies and dreams. It was after midnight when we got to Chris's place. There were no lights on, but we were being terribly careful in case there were colonists asleep inside. But by then I was sick of tiptoeing. "Let's rock the roof," I suggested, thinking of the rain on the galvanised iron of the shearers' quarters back at Kevin's. The others looked at me pityingly, but I was in a dangerous mood, fed up with hiding and running and skulking around. "No, let's," I insisted. "What's going to happen? If anyone's in there, they're not going to rush out into the darkness with guns blazing. They wouldn't be that stupid. There's plenty of cover around so we can get away fast if we have to." My powers of persuasion were better than I'd realised, because within 30 seconds I talked them into it. I wasn't sure, but I wanted to talk them into it. I'd been half joking. But to turn back now was to lose too much face. I reflected ruefully, picking up all the stones I could carry. We agreed on a place to meet if we got chased, then surrounded the house at the signal. A long, frighteningly loud "Coo-ee" from Homer I let fly. It was quite exciting. A squadron of possums wearing football boots and wheeling defective supermarket trolleys at high speed might have made as much noise, but they have had to work at it. I backed away fast, biting my bottom lip in amazement, and almost biting through it when I tripped over a garden seat. My shins and ankles certainly took a lot of punishment on these nighttime excursions. One lone rock and unexpected afterthought from someone suddenly clattered across the roof. A full minute after all the others, there was still not a murmur from inside the house. It was impossible that there could be anyone there after that. We gathered again near the front door, and sent Homer to go and look through the kitchen window. After he admitted to throwing the extra rock, "It's too dark to see much," he grumbled. Then after looking a bit longer, he said, "I think it's the same as when we left that message for Chris. I don't think anyone's been here." Yeah, how many pages do I have to go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 more pages of reading. So 8. And that's the way it was. It was disheartening discovery. We checked the old piggery. Finished the book, we chillin'. Alright, maybe. We got a few chapters left. Pretty big as well. But I might be able to. Got plenty of time. We checked the old piggery where Chris had hidden immediately after the invasion, but there was no sign of life there either, so we gathered around the dusty table in a musty kitchen, feeling tired and unhappy. The rush of excitement from the roof rockin' had quickly gone. We were so upset about Chris, yet so helpless. The only guesses we could make about his whereabouts were depressing ones. I was annoyed with myself that I hadn't thought to ask Mrs. Mackenzie, the man in the machinery shed, if they knew anything about him. But I'd been too confused and nervous. My only consolation was Robin's comment that if Chris had been caught and taken to the showground, the 2 adults would have mentioned it. "Well, no news is good news," Fee sighed. "Honestly, Fee," I snapped, "that's great help. That must be one of the most stupid expressions ever invented." Fee looked hurt. It was after 1 o'clock and we were all tired, getting cold too. "There's just nothing more we can do," Homer said.
To tell you the truth, the most likely thing is that I hate to say this, he's dead. We all squawked at Homer in outraged voices. We'd all thought of the possibility, of course, but to talk about it was to commit an obscenity. It was too frightening and horrifying to hear anyone say it out loud. Perhaps we were scared that our saying it might make it real, might make it happen. I'd already learned a lot about the power of words. Well, what are we going to do? Lee asked. We can't stay here. This is weird. Ebony, that's not very nice. Yeah, see? Zayden is the best 123. He's backing me up. He said, what? I'm just reading, Ebony. Just enjoying a nice book. Never mind. No, it's okay. Thank you, Ebony. Yes, we can, Fee said. I don't think it's too safe around here, Homer said. Those colonists are just up the road. We don't know how far they've spread this side of town. They could be at the Langs tomorrow. But it's so late, Fee said. I'm so tired and cold. I'm so sick of everything. She put her head down on her arms as she sat at the table. Lee patted her hair sympathetically, but the rest of us were too tired to do anything. We could stay here for a few hours, Homer offered, but would have to go again before dawn. I'd rather have a good sleep later than have a lousy sleep now. There was a silence as we all sat looking at Fee, hoping she'd give in gracefully. Oh, all right, she said at last, shaking Lee's hand off and getting up. Where are we going then? Let's go into Wirree, Homer said quickly. We haven't been there for ages, and we ought to have a look and see what's going on. See if there's anything we can do. If we leave now, we'll make it by dawn. Yeah, it's chill AF. He's reading a book for us. Thank you, Zayden is the best 123. You're backing me up. You're a loyal fan. We were too tired to argue. No one had any other ideas anyways. I was quite pleased to go to Wirree. I wanted to be able to be as close to civilization as possible. I didn't want to see hell for quite a bit longer. It started raining again 10 minutes after we left Chris's. The smart thing to do would have been to turn around and go back and find a dry shed. But no one even suggested it. I think that having started, we couldn't contemplate making another decision. So we plodded on in silence, getting wetter and wetter. It was very dark, but we could stay on the road with no fears of getting caught, so we followed it easily. I don't think anyone spoke a word between our departure from Chris's and our arrival in Wirree. We got to the music teacher's house at daybreak, but the grey wet light in the eastern sky was little different to the darkness of the night. Book's putting me to sleep. Good book. What was I up to? 4 of us stood shivering in the garden, hiding behind trees, wet and dripping, while Homer searched the house to make sure it was empty. I wondered where he got his energy. He seemed to have more than me, more than anyone, but at last he signalled us in. We squelched inside miserably, found towels and blankets, and stripped off in the upstairs bathroom. Homer offered to do guard duty, and no one gave him an argument. Robin and Fee shared one bed, and I took another in the next bedroom. Lee disappeared down the corridor to the end room. I just hoped the house wouldn't get raided while we were all undressed. But there was no sign of anyone having been here since our last visit. Pardon. I lay there, and as so often happened, having waited all night to get a bed and get some sleep,
Now that I was in a bed, my eyes couldn't close. I had never felt more awake.
Oh yeah, people messaging me. And where are we up to? The coarse woolen blanket prickled my skin, but in a nice way. It felt rough and primitive. For a long time I couldn't get warm, and I pressed my legs together and huddled further under the blankets, trying to hot up. I know. Beautiful moment in history. I'm getting messages interrupting it. I crossed my arms and put my hands in my armpits. My skin tingled as the blood started to circulate again, until only my feet were still cold. I put the right one on top of the left, willing them to thaw out. At last, the warmth, the snugginess, the coziness that I'd been needing for so long spread through me, till I could relax all over. I lay there, feeling luxurious. Then I heard a whisper. Are you awake? I popped my head out in shock. I felt like a possum coming out of a tree trunk, and I know my eyes were staring at coming out of. I knew my eyes were staring, and my hair was all mussed up from the blanket, so I probably looked like a possum too. It was Lee. You look like a caterpillar again. Not a possum? Yes, that too. Can I get in with you? He was standing there, wrapped in a blanket, shivering with cold. His brown eyes looked at me, pleadingly. I felt a slow, warm burn of excitement, but tried not to show it. No, I said. I'm only wearing blankets. That's what I was hoping. That's all I'm wearing too. Lee, please. No, well, you can lie in the bed, I suppose, but that's all. And don't think, I added as he started quickly hopping over to me, that you're going to sweet talk me into anything else. But my charm and personality, yeah, I know about all that stuff. He lay beside me with his head resting on his right arm, looking at me thoughtfully. He had the trace of a smile. What are you thinking? He asked presently. Oh, he caught me by surprise. I was too excited having him this close. I was getting hot under the blankets. I don't think I want to answer that. Go on. I'll answer part of it. I was wondering why you were smiling. To my surprise, he didn't say anything for quite a while. But the smile had left his face. He looked serious, like he was in church or something. Couldn't you sleep? I asked him. Nah, I don't sleep so well these days. Not since the night by the cliff. I shuddered, changed the subject. He suddenly moved a little closer, kissed me hard. I kissed him back, possibly even harder. All was getting freaky now. What the hell? It was so fresh, but I didn't know where it might end, or where I wanted it to end. Gradually, his kisses changed from hard and savage to soft and teasing, making little like contacts with my lips in one spot after another. It was exciting. We did that for quite a time, then lay with our heads on each other's shoulders. His blankets had slipped down a bit, though. I was making sure that mine didn't. I felt the smooth hollow under his collarbone, his skin warm and alive. I nudged it with my lips, making little murmuring noises to it, and rubbed my hands up in his arms. I found a little pulse under the skin and concentrated on kissing that. He was humming quietly, I thought, but I wasn't sure if it was his skin or his voice. He played with my hair and the back of my neck, stroking me with surprising confidence. With his long, fine fingers, he teased my hair out, unraveling a few knots and letting the strands slide across his hands. Freaky. Nice hair, he said at last. It's so oily, I complained. I like it. It feels natural. It's sexy. Thanks, I laughed.
He must have taken that for encouragement because he moved his hand down under the blanket for the first time, feeling for my shoulder blades. Oh, help, I thought. What do I do here? Dad always used to talk about the thin edge of the wedge, and I was afraid that this was it. I didn't want to stop, but I thought maybe we should, and I might regret it if I didn't stop him soon. But it felt so good. Damn him, I thought. How does he know what I like? I wondered if I was having the same effect on him with my hands, and I experimentally ran my fingers down his side as far as I could get, which wasn't very far. He's wildin'. He's indeed wilding. His skin seemed to come out in goose pimples as I touched him, which was quite exciting. I lifted myself a little and touched his left nipple. Hey? Steve had taught me that boys' nipples were as sensitive as girls'. Lee's were different to Steve's, though. Steve had been pale and wide, like fried eggs, on his chest. I liked Lee's more. They were little and dark and brown, like press studs. When I played with the left one, it hardened straight away, so I could strum it and tickle it with the tip of my fingers. Hey, 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 he said. Is that Thai or Vietnamese? Neither. Universal. Ha! My blanket was holding up at the front, just, but was well down at the back, as Lee's hands kept roaming. I lay still for a while, feeling guilty that I wasn't doing more but enjoying his touch too much. Now she's wild and the tables have turned. Yes. His book got freaky all of a sudden. Didn't expect that. My skin had become so heated that I thought his hands would catch fire. I moved back off him a little, but couldn't help playing with his right nipple for a minute, just like I had the left. Then I ran my hand lower in a long sweeping movement, kissing him warmly as I did so. Are you going to be able to stop? I asked him. Sure, sure. You're a terrible liar. By moving back off him that little bit, I'd given him more room, trying to look casual. He put his hand under the blanket that was just covering me at the front, at the same time kissing me hard to try to distract me. And I was easily distracted. I let him run his hands over my skin, thinking that what had been fair enough for him was fair enough for me. I rumpled his hair, feeling my face redden as he excited me more and more. Would I be able to stop? Would I want to stop? I already knew the answer to that, as I had done since he first came into the room. Oh, godly, I said, but couldn't think of how I should finish the sentence. My own hands went further than they should have, down to his waist and beyond. It was as though they had life of their own. The hell with it, I thought. I'll do it. Last time I'd been in this house, I'd spent a lot of time wrapped in a tartan rug. That's when Lee had first called me a caterpillar. A beautiful, sexy caterpillar. This book in general is wild. It is very wild. Now a caterpillar again. I was emerging from my cocoon of blankets. Lee's hands were at my bum, and he was rolling me over a little. I felt up inside his legs as high as I dared, but not quite touching everything. I sneaked a little look that was fascinating. Such a wild looking thing. So greedy, so determined. I knew Lee was looking at me too, and I was a bit embarrassed. Not very though. It was obvious that he liked what he saw, and I secretly enjoyed the effect I was having on him. Have you got a... I asked, turning my head away a little. I didn't want to say the word. A what? He asked. You know, a condom. Ha, bum. Yes. That was funny. Oh, no, he groaned. Ellie, not that. Not now. Okay, okay, I said. That's cool. Just as long as you have the baby for me. Jesus, Liesel. Do you have to? Yes. Can you imagine if I got pregnant? He sucked for a minute and said, I think Homer's got some. How many do you think you'll need? I asked, giggling into my pillow. He started getting up. Wait, I said, what are you going to do? You can't just go and ask him for them. I'm not stupid, he said, still grumpy. They're in his wallet, and his wallet should be in his trousers, and his trousers are in the bathroom drying. He disappeared out the door, shuffling along in his blanket, and I lay there smiling. I couldn't believe I was actually going to do it. I hoped I wouldn't muck it up, and that it wouldn't hurt too much, and that it would feel fantastic. I was nervous, but I was still aching all over with the need for him, the longing to feel him against me again. His warm hands had felt fantastic. I gave a little laugh out loud, a laugh of amazement and disbelief and excitement. It seemed ages before he came back, but at last he shuffled in and flung himself on top of me, clutching a couple of little packets in his hand. With a shy grin, trying to do it as modestly as possible, he got himself out from his blanket and under mine. To feel our two naked bodies together, skin to skin, was the wildest feeling of my life. I thought I'd been fired up before, but now it was like sparks were shooting off me. Lee had calmed down with the walk to the bathroom and had cooled down too, but I warmed him by rubbing against him, and I felt him quickly react. Put it on, I said at last, nodding at his clenched fist. He peeled one open and lifted himself off me, looking down so he could see what he was doing. I watched curiously. Don't look, he said, blushing and trying to put his forearm over my eyes. Oh, I said, you're so cute when you're shy. When he was ready, I hugged him to me and nibbled his ear for a minute before wrapping my legs around him. After that, it went from okay, not great, but okay. Lee got a bit clumsy, just from the nerves, I think, and that made me a bit nervous, which didn't help. I wanted to be the great lover, the perfect partner, and I get worried, but I wasn't being that. By the time he was really in me, he couldn't hold on any longer, and after that, it wasn't as passionate. He just wanted to lie there and hold me. I made him be a bit more creative until I had enough too. I didn't know what I felt, a mixture of things. I was pleased that I'd finally done it without any disasters. Sorry that it hadn't been better, wondering if I'd be completely different from now on, but I enjoyed the cuddling for about half an hour. We lay together, eyes closed, scratching each other's arms and backs with long, slow, lazy strokes drifting in and out of sleep. Look, the book seemed interesting earlier, now it's weird. Yes, it got really weird all of a sudden. We were interrupted by a soft knock on the door and Homer's whisper, Ellie, it's your turn for Century. Okay, I called. I'll be there. I waited a few minutes, then eased Lee off me. I pulled off a blanket for covering, planning to go downstairs and get some dry clothes from my pack before I relieved Homer. But as I got to the door, I suddenly realized something. Homer had knocked on the door, then called his message through it. He'd never done it before. He'd always just crashed in and shook me awake. We'd known each other so long we didn't bother with too many polite customs. I turned and looked at Lee lying there on the bed. Lee, I said, why did Homer knock on the door? Eh? He said, only half awake. Why did Homer knock? Why didn't he come in, barging in like he usually does? Suddenly he was awake. He looked at me guiltily. Bastard, I said coldly. I couldn't find the condoms, he said. Had to ask him. I threw the door open and stormed out, spoiling the effect a bit by tripping over the blanket. I was furious. I didn't want Homer to know what we'd been doing. Once Homer knew, everyone know. The only good thing about Lee telling him was that it kept me awake through my whole Century turn. I spent the time having imaginary conversations with Lee, telling him what I thought of him. Anger's good like that.
Well, we got to know why I shut the book. Oh no. They put a bookmark in. He's not the only one that busted. Yes, you're right. Well, we got up to chapter 15. There's like 17. And it's getting dark in here. I can't really read it properly. It's dark outside as well. Just see the sunset. So, Zayden the best, 1, 2, 3. I hope you enjoyed the reading of The Dead of the Night. And thank you for watching. I'm gonna go now. And I hope my 3 viewers at the moment had a good night. Have a good night, mate. I'll be back. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.